I hope everyone is having a great start to 2021. I had realized that I started a podcast right when I started a business, and the two kind of clashed at first, this start of this year. I put a lot of pressure on myself to get everything done at once, and eventually I had a whole list of things that I wanted slash needed to get done and didn't actually have the full capacity to be able to do that. And so obviously I needed to put myself first. I did have a full-time job during this whole transitional period. And realigning those things to make sure that I can fit in everything that I'm now making a priority, which is awesome and also a work in progress. So this year is going to continue to be just that, which I'm very excited about. So I appreciate everyone sticking with me through the randomness, because at first that's just what it's going to be for this. I do love speaking. I think that the best way of communicating for me is going to be like an online vlog or something of that nature, where I can just come on and do the information. And then that would be able to double as the podcast and all of that fun stuff. So I have some really big plans going. It's just all the initial starting out creaks, which I am sorting out now, which is awesome. I wanted to just say that also, like, all of my clients that I have started to onboard, they will always come first. So if something were to need to fall by the wayside, it would be all the extra projects that I've taken on. So I appreciate everyone sticking with me through it, and hopefully at some point I can get to a point where I'm like able to do a weekly episode or something like that. But until then, it's gonna come out when I have the extra energy to share. So here we are. It's actually really interesting. I did this exact episode a few nights ago. I just have really wanted to get back out there, and even in the last few days, watching my energy shift. I mean, I guess I really don't mind, but if I were to post what I recorded the other night when I really wasn't in a place of energetic prosperity to be able to share. I mean, I said in that episode, like, I would really like to get to the point where I'm only doing a podcast if I have that overwhelmingly extra energy to share, which recently in my case hasn't been. You know, full-time careers on top of starting a business generally start to make waves there. So I am getting to a point where my energy is back in my world, which is amazing, and I really do feel quite blessed to be able to return to a peace of mind that was always mine to hold. So, and I'm feeling really optimistic about, you know, the transitioning out of that, and what I recognized first, which is worth sharing and probably applicable to, you know, the overall tone of the start of the year, which would be burnout. I was going through something like emotional or overwork burnout. So when we looked at that, or when I looked at that, it was definitely an experience versus being able to it was something that had to transpire for multiple times in this case for me to actually be able to click with the warning sign. And so with that being said, you know, that can apply to anything. It doesn't just have to be a job or a career that could cause that for you. Emotional burnout as a collective is actually something that we are seeing right now, just because of all of the events that have taken place. There's a lot to be distressed about. So we are seeing that as more of a common theme, and I'm here to say that it is very much within our control. I mean, it's not within everyone's control to, you know, leave their particular situation necessarily. However, it is within their control to identify the root causes that are causing the burnout. And I that is the place to start. When something is, and it could not just be one thing, it could be multiple things. If multiple things are adding on to something that is too heavy to hold, it's time to start unpacking some of that, and deciphering what is yours to hold and what isn't. And then also deciphering through all of that, is this helping my healing or is it not? Because if it's not, there are other options possibly. And it's worth considering that if you're in a point where you're not feeling 100%, because if you're not feeling 100% and you for some reason are either needed to give 100%, which you should never necessarily be, or you do give all of your attention and energy to, let's say, in a case of this, your career, and then other parts of your life start to suffer as a result. And I think even more so than ever, it's a way that also, like, these things happen energetically, however, they do affect us physically as well. So there's physical symptoms of fatigue and burnout, and that would look different for everyone. But to identify how your body's talking to you too. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, my face is starting to clear up now, but I'm also starting to deal with stuff. I mean, I've been taking care of myself fairly well throughout this entire burnout process, but some things you can't trick yourself to not notice. If there's something continuing that's perpetuating the distress, your body is only getting so many nutrients as it is, because it's not in a state that's able to absorb anything, whether that be from food or from a supplement. It doesn't really matter the source at that point, because your body's in such distress, it's not able to even take any of it in, which is definitely where I was at. So being able to identify the root causes, definitely step one. Step two is obviously choosing, because everything is within your control on how you respond, how you would like to proceed forward. And that could look very small, incremental steps. That could mean using your lunchtime to do a breathing practice. That could mean packing lunches for yourself as opposed to eating out or grabbing food that is readily available at that point. It could look like scheduling in 30 minutes of exercise during the week after work so you can decompress. It could look like you taking 10 minutes on the way home before you go into the house to check in with yourself and to debrief and to get rid of that energy before bringing it home. It could look like a million things, really. And that's what's really cool about it. Everyone has their different what works and what brings them to a point of feeling like they can move forward. And there's a lot of potential there, and there always will be, because we are continuing to experience these things as they come, and as on the scale of emotions and feelings, it does seem like such a range, but in reality, there's the lower feeling vibrations, and then there's the higher ones. So how can we get an individual or yourself? I mean, in this case, it was even just me doing it to myself. How do we get it so the lower frequency emotions, yes, they will show up, but how do they not hold as much power, because you have the balance of both? And how do you get to a place where you're neutral? And how do you stay there? You know, how do you every single day get at least neutral? And you know, that's something to me I've heard before, like positivity, it's like the excessive, like people aren't always positive, and like, yeah, duh, like, yeah, people aren't always positive, there's no way. And actually, how boring would that be? It really wouldn't give any variation that give you what positive means. Positive has a connotation because there's something in contrast and comparison. In the same sense, how do we get it so it's not so extremes? How do we get it so that daily life can be that happy neutral, and how that neutral will really become a state of bliss in itself, because it's so empowering to feel in your true essence and not to feel controlled by the ups and the downs of the day-to-day. So beautiful stuff there. And also, in the midst of chaos or the end, or whatever you would look at, something that negative happens to you, because that does happen. We have these outside forces, we have these outside circumstances, we work with other people. You're not in control of everything that happens to you. You are, however, in control of how you react to it and how you show up in that moment, which is wonderful, because a lot of the time we feel anger or jealousy or this burning desire for something other than what we are able to control, so to say. But in reality, the only thing that we necessarily have what you would call control over is ourselves. Is ourselves in the moments, and sometimes the reactions that come up are driven by a place of fear or upset or hurt, and to be able to identify where the feelings are coming from before acting on them as well. Really breaking it down to be able to self-identify before reacting to others, because a lot of us, even in adult culture, I mean, we look at trying to be able to teach children or younger generations, but I still see a lot of adults struggle with some of these concepts as well. So being able to identify our feelings and where they're rooted from prior to expressing them, because what happens when you're able to identify your feelings and where they're coming from is you may be able to identify the true need behind the feeling. So especially in the case of I'm feeling angry, I don't feel heard, or something of a lower energetic emotion, identifying the feeling that comes along with it, where it comes from, and what the actual need is. So when we react, we generally put a lot of our feeling into it, and there isn't that thought out back process of, what do I need here? Why am I having this reactive feeling there? Our triggers are actually our biggest teachers, which is so incredible, and also quite frustrating until you get to the point of being able to harness and figure that out, because they're not very comfortable sometimes. And like anything in the human body, if it's telling you something in the way of being depleted, it doesn't necessarily feel very good, but it is reaching out and crying out for your attention. And especially in like the specific points in the body and where it's at energetically, those things are speaking to us. It is the most beautiful gift. They actually show that energetically our feelings are stored in different parts of our bodies. And I have been working with an acupuncturist personally for the past year, and being able to identify in my body like where the points are. The tapping something that you can do at home with the tapping points. There's many tapping instructions, like ones you can follow along with, but also you can do them yourself. You can do the points, and you could tap. Last week I tapped for joy. My therapist said, bring joy into your life. How are you going to do that? We're going to tap for it. We're going to create it. We're going to create the space for it. We're going to make it in the schedule. We're going to put it in as a scheduler on your events, and that event is just as important as any other events you have with any of your clients. Your appointments to yourself are just as important as your job or as your family. I mean, in these cases, if we're showing up as a caretaker, whether that be in the family sense or in a career, the caretaker is only able to care if they care for themselves first. And there's a lot of these steps that are missed along the way because we are driven by the priorities that we're taught, by a culture that at one time valued something that doesn't necessarily align with human nature. And I guess that's different for everyone. Maybe you can work a 50-hour job every week and, do that type of stuff. There are different drivers, there are different motivators. There are people that do enjoy that. I wouldn't say enjoy. Maybe, I don't know. There's no limit to people's abilities. Let's just say that. However, putting yourself first further perpetuates your abilities, your ability to show up, your ability to be present, your ability to pay attention. I can tell you right now that this morning, if I hadn't have meditated and given myself that time and then also had an acupuncture appointment after, that I certainly wouldn't be in the same energetic frequency that I am currently to be able to share. There's no way. And in comparison of my mood, my ability to speak today, in comparison to 3 nights ago when I recorded the first time I did this, I mean, it shows. And it's not to say that every day is a great day and your cup is always overflowing because you're always taking care of yourself and you're always on point. No. But it does mean that you make time for yourself to make that possibility real. Because you're never going to be number one on someone else's priority list. Not even your significant other, not even your parents, not even anyone. You are on top of your priority list, just like you would want someone else who you are with to be the first priority in their lives as well. Interdependent relationships are key to being able to expand and continue to grow in a relationship. Anything that is less than that is truly an unhealthy attachment. And so when we look at these things and we're able to move past what we have known, and that may look like being able to work through relationships that had unhealthy boundaries. That may look like taking space from yourself away from others to be able to create those for yourself. It may look like a million things again, like I said. It's not the same for everyone. But being able to identify your needs, the feelings behind your triggers when they come up, the needs that are not being met that are perpetuating those triggers. Being able to identify your own values, what you think is true and not. And it's not to say that you can't get along with others who have a different idea of what it to be, but it means that you know you. You can show up confidently in you every single time. Because you know who you are, and it doesn't matter what others think about you. It doesn't matter what they think and who they think you are, because you know who you are. You know what you value, and you know what you bring to the table. And therefore, it doesn't matter if other people can't see it, because you don't expect anything less than what you know to be your values and what you deserve, as innately everyone does. Everyone does. And that's not just humans. Every being does. Every living being. And we all work within a system together. So to be able to show up as your individual portion of that beautiful puzzle is truly the only thing you need to do. And for parents, of course, we want to continue to be able to pass along those wonderful, healthy traits as well. But to do that, we have to first embody them. We can't teach something that we're not able to embody. And our biggest teachers are luckily what we teach best. So if this is something you struggle with, it's only something to identify and look at. It's not something holding you back. And it's certainly not a life sentence, because you were innately put here, and those triggers are showing up for you to show you that there is a possibility and there is a gap between who and what you expect and what is going on. And how beautiful is that? I mean, really, that our own bodies will tell us exactly what we need, even emotionally. And yes, it doesn't feel good always, but it is the best signs that we could get if we can tune into ourselves and listen to what's going on. So, a lot of great stuff there. Also, when negative events, this is where I actually wanted to go with this, but I went off on. So for when negative events come up for you, it is our perception as well on how we are able to proceed and move forward from the event. So in the case of needing to let something go, or needing to change a behavior, or what have you, it really could apply to anything. We can look at it with, this is uncomfortable, it's a change, it's maybe leaving you in a position where you're vulnerable to not knowing what's next. It's a loss of the ego's control on, this is within my realm. I know what's going on here. I can process it because I have information to compare it to, all of that. You could look at it anyway, obviously. But for your own growth and your own well-being, every change that comes into your life could be orchestrated by the highest good. It could be, and it could mean, the next step in your journey towards what's truly aligning with you. And if we hold on to these things so tightly that we know, that we have known, and that we want to think that we were consumed with, either a job title or a marriage that's not working, or a friendship, or, a disagreement, what have you. If you can look at it as a learning lesson, a way to show up as the observer, a way to come to terms, whether that even mean that I hear you, I acknowledge what you're saying, and I don't agree. If we can come to the unbiased stance of your opinion not being the same as mine doesn't change how I feel, and it doesn't change how you feel, and that's okay, and being able to proceed. Those moments are where we are actually creating the end to the stigma between who's right and who's wrong, because who is right and who's wrong? I mean, yes, we're seeing all of these results from decisions. I mean, cause and effect, we're always going to be dealing with that one way or another. However, to not let it end you. I mean, this is truly, these situations where they could be life-shattering, could be perpetuating you towards the future that you would never have came to without the experience. And to be able to automatically take yourself from, woe is me, I'm scared, to this is opening up the space energetically and the possibilities that would never have existed had I have not taken this in the way that I did and opened up space for me to continue to grow, for me to continue to see the new opportunities, for me to welcome into abundance of my life. It is very easy when you are losing something or losing control or feeling like something isn't going your way to be stuck in a repetitive cycle of what is lacking, what isn't there, what we are losing, what we cannot obtain. It is very, very powerful, however, to switch it from that mindset to I am in control, I need nothing, everything I need is already within me, and I am able to see that without all the distractions. I am able to see that even through the darkness. I am able to see that even though things are not going right now. We come to a place of truly being able to match our potential, because had these experiences of not happened, or had we have gotten stuck in that loop of I will never be able to get something like that again, I have lost it, it is unobtainable because it didn't work out here. We switch that automatically. We don't even give it the time of day. And we are already on to welcoming in abundance, welcoming in guidance from the universe, and also asking, how can I show up? How can I help raise my own frequency and the frequency of the universe around me so that no one feels this way when something doesn't go their way? Because let's face it, when things don't go our way, it's based on the reality that has been created. The true innate self is already worthy of all of those higher frequency feelings of joy, happiness, fulfillment, peace, honesty, truth, the fullest embodiment of who we are. All of those things are something that belongs to every single being. We are already gifted that the day we are born, probably even before. Our souls are innately gifted, each of us, the same opportunities. It is, in fact, how we show up to the good and the bad that moves us towards what we are experiencing. And that is the best news ever, because that means that even if you have been in a low state for a long time, it means even if there is something that you feel like still holds you stuck, it means that it is not going to need to last forever, because it is also something that can be worked towards in a very flipped way when you open up the space to be able to see it from another perception. And I believe that we all could use a little perception work, including myself, to be able to see and experience perceptions of ours that aren't our own, and not to let it interfere with what we believe to be true. We all are here for different purposes, to teach each other different things, so to be able to work together. Even in the midst of what we would say is disagreeing. Disagreeing is truly, well, it comes at different levels, obviously, but a shift in perception that isn't correctly aligning. How beautiful could it be if we could look at each other's differences and not let them affect our own? That would be operating from the higher self. And the only thing standing in the way of that is our own egos. And sometimes when other people's egos are turned on, ours can be easily triggered as well. And these are things of like battle of the egos. And that's where we see in a lot of conflict still. However, there is hope there as well, because this exists, but it doesn't need to run the show. And as you continue to work with it, and the ego's perception versus the higher self perception, when you build that strength towards your highest self, it starts, you still hear the ego. It's still there. It's just not as loud. It just doesn't hold as much weight over you. And after a long time, it quiets. it doesn't run the show anymore. And if we all could continue to work on that for years and years to come, this world would be a better place. This universe would be a better place. All of creation would be a better place. And starting with you is the only place you can start. And luckily, it is the greatest place to start, because the second that you have come to a place where you are at peace, you start to see people around you feel a sense of peace as well. And it's not because you're creating it for them, it's because you're embodying it and you're showing them that it's possible. People need hope. People need a chance to see that it's possible. And it's not just possible for the people they're witnessing, or the celebrities, or who they watch on the news, or whoever. It's possible for everyone, innately. You never needed anyone's permission. You don't need mine. And you don't need your families, or your co-workers, or your mailmans, or your neighbors. You don't need anyone's perception to want this for yourself but you. And I swear by my own experiences, when you give yourself that intention and you that presence, and you ask for guidance from the universe, and you give up your control over the end result, that you will start seeing things fall into place. You give the room to the universe to create coexisting with what you are looking to do. And that doesn't mean thinking about it in your head and leaving it there. It means putting it out there. It means sharing it. It means not coming from a place of, I have to hide, I can't put myself out there. It comes from a place of being so secure with what you are, who you can be, and where you want to be going, that you want to share it, and you're ready to put it out there, and you're ready to work with people, and it's not a competition, and it doesn't bug you when other people are doing the same things or something similar or different. It doesn't matter. In fact, you start cheering people on. You think it's awesome. You start seeing that if it's possible for other people, it's possible for you too. The sense of lack, the sense of they can do it and I can't, it doesn't exist. It exists in our reality that was created. Everyone has the possibility. Everyone has the resources, because they aren't resources like the computer or the system. That's not it. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the resources of your own heart, your own voice, and your own intention. And that's not something anyone can ever take away from you. It's not something that you need a computer to do. You can walk outside and you can talk to people. And man, have we lost that ability. But being able to bring it back, use your voice, and get yourself in a position where you feel like sharing with others, because you are taking care of your own self and needs, and you don't need anyone else to fill those needs. You don't need anyone else to compare your path to, because your path is uniquely your own and no one else's, just like their path isn't yours. And the only thing that we can keep doing through all of that is encouraging each other to be individuals, because we are individuals. We are not the same, and we were never meant to be. I can't wait to continue on these topics and just feeling the way I do now. Having the space to be able to create again and to be able to share from a place of true honesty and for me, being my fullest expressed self. And it's not something that every day comes. It's not even something that is like maintained on a regular, this is how it is. And honestly, why would I put the pressure on myself to be on all the time? That's not how it works either. Like I said, to get to the happy neutral, to get to the place of blissful peace, to be unaffected in a positive or negative way, is to mean that you have control of your own homeostasis, to be able to be regulated, to be able to fully present and show up in the moment without looking at the past or the future. In fact, when we look in the future, it's almost in just the same way. I mean, there are manifestations, there is great planning, there is all of that. But at the same time, not at the cost of the present. Because the only place that we exist truly is here and now. And we could go into further, space-time dimensions and what exists in time and how that would line up. However, I'm still doing quite a bit of research there as well, so I will stick to what I know for a fact at this point, which would be the future planning is good I don't like using the word good. It is productive in the way that it isn't interfering with your daily life. If it is taking up too much time, and you need to be able to also make time for your present self as well. This comes in also light of the fact that we give a lot of our time and energy to others by way of careers, family life, and friends. Additionally, all of that. We put responsibilities on ourselves that show up in our physical, mental health. So being able to create the boundaries around each of those environments differently to be able to create some space for yourself as well. It's hard to say like, oh, every single day you should be creating space for yourself. However, every single day there should be at least a few moments, whether that even be when you wake up in the morning, that you say to yourself, wow, thank you. Give yourself a few minutes of presence on your own self, whether that looks like just in your head or journaling, whether that looks like taking 20 minutes to freshen up before interacting or using your phone. There's so many ideas. There's so many possibilities. And the reality is you don't need anyone else to tell you what the possibilities are. You just need to give yourself the opportunity to open up to the idea that what you've been doing day after day isn't the only way. There are things that you can slowly start to add in, whether that even be intention in what you're already doing. There is hope. There are possibilities, and they are all innately yours to consider and to embody. They always were. Have a great week, and I will talk to you again soon-ish.